Hello and welcome to the Street Crime UK YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Today we look at members of a gang who flooded Greater Manchester with cocaine, heroin, cannabis and who are now behind bars despite their extensive efforts to fool detectives. The multi-million-pound drugs ring, which also extended across the West Midlands, earned the crooks around £20,000 a day during the 3-month conspiracy. Russian spoofing SIM cards and encrypted iron mobile phones were used to keep police at bay, but they were finally caught out when officers found key players with huge amounts of cash and drugs worth hundreds of thousands of pounds. Officers seized cocaine with a street value of around £1.3 million, heroin worth £725,000, cannabis worth £15,000 and almost £250,000 in cash, a court was previously told. Records showed that over a 36-day period, the gang was raking in about £20,000 a day, according to prosecutors. Corey Norford, the man who prosecutors say headed up the Manchester gang, fled to Portugal after being arrested and bailed. The 27-year-old is still at large. 6 of his accomplices were sentenced last week. A further 7 have now also been jailed, while Dwayne Thomas, 27, of Demency Road, Whalley Range, is due to be sentenced at a later date after he admitted conspiracy to supply drugs and money laundering. GMP's serious organised crime group investigated the activities of the group, who were heavily involved in the supply of Class A and Class B drugs. During Operation Friction, officers seized more than 5 kilograms of cocaine and heroin and almost £250,000 in cash. Manchester Crown Court previously heard how the gang sold substantial amounts of cocaine and heroin to another organised crime group in Birmingham. The Manchester gang employed sophisticated anti-surveillance methods, using expensive encrypted mobile phones, which allowed them to use a form of instant messaging which leaves no trace of the contents of the messages, as they are not saved to the device's memory. Spoofing SIM cards were also used, which disguised the identity of the caller's mobile phone, making it more difficult for the police to analyse the devices for clues. But the network was unravelled when key players were identified. Tyrone Carter Spencer was pulled over by police on the M6 with £88,000 on him. Just over a month later, officers raided an address on Heathbank Road in Blakely, where they recovered more than 4 kilograms of cocaine. Later that day, Greg Pattinson was stopped on City Road, Holme, as he travelled from the West Midlands into Manchester. More than £52,500 in cash was seized from his person. The gang continued to unravel later that month when officers stopped Simone Jackson on Athol Street in Whalley Range following covert surveillance. She was found with 1.2 kilograms of heroin that she tried to dispose of in a bin after claiming she thought it was food. When detectives examined Taryn Lee's mobile phone, they discovered that the group made more than £750,000 in just over a month. Detective Inspector Tony Norman of GMP's Serious and Organised Crime Group said the operation is ongoing. Former semi-professional footballer Reece Headlam, 25, of Need and Close, Openshaw, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply Class A and Class B drugs and conspiracy to convert criminal property. He was sentenced to 6 years and 8 months. Simone Jackson, 39, was found guilty of conspiracy to supply drugs. Miss Jackson of Domain Road, Whalley Range, was jailed for 2 years. Carl Hill, 38, was found guilty of conspiracy to supply drugs. He pleaded guilty to money laundering and sentenced to 6 years. Former support worker Rio Horton, Greg Patterson, Taryn Lee, Terrain Lee, Liam Maguire and Conor Maguire all pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply drugs and money laundering. Rio Horton, 30, of Skirton Road, Stretford, was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Greg Pattinson, 39, of Ellaby Grove, Birmingham, received 3 years and 9 months behind bars. Along with Mr. Headlam, he was said to be a manager for the gang, but had previously worked as a youth engagement coach to try and get young people off the streets before turning to crime. Taryn Lee, 21, of Ruby Street, Moss Side, was sentenced to 7 years. Terrain Lee, 21, of the same address, was sentenced to 2 years and 6 months. The Maguire brothers, described in court as street dealers, both pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply Class A drugs and conspiracy to supply Class B drugs. Liam Maguire, 26, of Hardman Street, Failsworth, was jailed for 3 years and 4 months, and Conor Maguire, 20, of Peatfield Walk, Hulme, was jailed for 2 years and 8 months. Stephen Nguye and John Diashuk, 66, both pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply drugs. Mr. Nguye of Heathbank Road, Blackley, was sentenced to 3 years and 9 months behind bars. John Diashuk of Stockport Road, Leversham, was sentenced to 3 years and 9 months. Sean Watson of Penkridge, Stafford, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply Class A and Class B drugs and the production of cannabis. The 30-year-old was jailed for 2 years and 6 months. Described in court as a cash courier, Carter Spence, 22, of Greatstone Road, Stretford, was jailed for 18 months after pleading guilty to conspiracy to convert criminal property. So what are your thoughts about this Manchester-based drugs gang and how they used the Encrochat system to distribute drugs and went on to make £250,000 in less than 3 months? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, stay safe.